This video will demonstrate how to set up basic motor and sensory test setups in NCS+. So I'm going to go into F6 Setup and click Test Protocols, or we can go to Edit Test Protocols. It's the same place. And NCS+ Test Protocol. Here's all of our test setups. I'm going to right-click, and I can add a group, which is this guy. I can add a subgroup, which is this, or I can add a test setup. So here's a test setup. We're going to do a median motor. So it's an easy example. And now we're going to, what I sometimes like to do is put in the recording site here, so it's clear what test setup it is. So we're doing a median motor test setup. Now we come over and put our sites in that we will be stimulating. So we're going to add a site. And this is a motor site, the median nerve, stim site. We're going to do digit, actually APB. Or no, sorry, stim site is wrist, recording site is APB. Hitting plus is going to copy that site, so now we have to change for the second site. This is a stim point, and so we're going to set the second stim point as elbow, and then we'll add a third stim point. In this site, we're going to do axilla, and then one more, and this one we'll do herbs point. Now, maybe these are rarely done, so in this case, I'm just going to hide these two sites, so that way they're only visible when I want them. So the only two sites that will always be shown is wrist and elbow, and then if I want to do the additional sites here, I can just click the icon in the trace window, and that'll show these sites. Now I want to make sure I have segments set up for these sites. So I go into my segment area, and I'm going to make sure I'm in the motor segments. Click median. I don't have any segments set up for the median nerve yet, so I'm going to add a segment, and we're going to go. We want one from elbow to wrist, so we're going to go elbow to wrist. At APB, add a second segment, and this one will do axilla to elbow. And then we'll do one from herbs point to axilla. And if I wanted to, I could have default distances in for them. I do want to always include these. I'm going to set these to always. That means they'll always show the velocity when those sites are stimulated. If it's set for short segment, it's only going to add a velocity if you stim that site in between a longer segment. Now I'm done with that. I'm going to go and create a sensory site. So in this case, we'll go down to antidromic sensory, and I'm going to add a test setup. I'm going to do this. We'll call this one a median across palm, for example. And then we're going to add a site, and this is a sensory. And the nerve is the median nerve. And our first stim site will do palm, and then we'll plus. Our second stim site will do a wrist, and on occasion I might do an elbow. So I'm going to add an elbow site, and we'll hide that one. And now I'm going to make sure that in my sensory segments and median, I have segments for everything I want to segment for. It looks like I already have some done in here, so I just want to make sure that I have a palm to wrist. Probably, let's say I wanted a palm to wrist and a wrist to elbow, and maybe I wanted a wrist to digit 4. And let's take a look. So here we have palm to wrist. We have a wrist to digit 2. Actually, that's wrong. We want to make that a digit 2 because it's a median nerve. So we have wrist to digit 2. We have a palm to wrist, and let's add a wrist to elbow if there's not one. There already is one wrist to elbow. So everything's already set up. You can see we can have default distances in there if we want. So now we've set up a motor and sensory nerve. Just hit OK, and that saves all your changes. A couple of things about this is if you have sort sites on anatomically selected, that means that regardless of what order you stimulate in, when it shows the results in the trace window, it actually puts the results in anatomical order, so that earliest latency will always be shown first, and so on. we'll show in the second video more advanced setups with multi-channel recordings and mixed recordings. So just hit OK to save your changes. And now you should be able to go into your home screen and start a new study and take a look at those exams. So that's the basics of setting up kind of your basic motor and sensory test setups in NCS Plus.